The sun stretched its golden fingers over the little valley, spilling soft light across the mossy rooftops of the tiny village. It was one of those mornings that felt like a yawn you could feel all the way down to your toes. The cobblestone streets glistened faintly with dew, and the air smelled like a mix of fresh grass, tiny blossoms, and something that might have been toast. Well, maybe not toast just yet, but give it an hour, and you'd swear you could smell it. In the middle of this miniature paradise lived a family so small that a hedgehog could probably pass for a neighbor. There was Mama, gentle and patient, with hands that seemed to know exactly how to coax life out of every tiny plant she touched. There was Papa, a tall sort of fellow if you considered tall in miniature terms. He could reach the top shelf without needing a stool, which made him feel rather proud of himself. And then there were the little ones, twins, or maybe not twins, depending on how often Mama got the names mixed up. Either way, they were small, curious, and endlessly enthusiastic about things like puddles, pebbles, and the occasional beetle. The tiny cottage they lived in was charming, the kind of place that could make even a passing snail stop and admire it. Most climbed happily over the roof, giving it a natural, almost fuzzy look, as if the house itself were wrapped in a warm, green blanket. Smoke curled lazily from the little chimney, carrying the smell of, well, we'd find out soon enough. Inside, the furniture was tiny but perfect chairs that fit snugly, tables just high enough for the kids to reach, and a bed that could fit the family all at once if they didn't mind a little elbow bumping. The village around them was a scene straight out of a storybook. Every house had its own personality. Some were painted soft pastels, others kept to earthy tones, blending in with the gentle hills around them. Little gardens popped up everywhere, spilling flowers over fences and letting vines climb up the walls. Cobblestone streets twisted and turned in no particular order, which, according to Papa, was the perfect excuse for getting lost every now and then. Though Mama would probably argue it was an excellent reason to pay attention. As the morning light washed over the village, the family stirred awake. The kids' tiny feet padded across the wooden floors with a sound somewhere between a whisper and a tiptoe. Mama's voice floated through the house, soft and warm. "Good morning, little sprouts," she said, with a hint of sleep still in her tone. "Rise and shine. Or at least, rise." The twins groaned in unison, which was their polite way of saying, "We're awake. Don't rush us." Papa yawned so wide it was almost alarming, considering the size of his mouth in proportion to his face. He rubbed his eyes and mumbled something about needing coffee that he would probably forget to make because, well, mornings. Outside, the birds had begun their chorus, a medley of chirps, tweets, and tiny squawks. It wasn't a loud kind of morning music, more like a soft, welcoming whisper that the day had begun and everything was fine. A small breeze carried the scent of flowers across the village, and even the dewdrops on the cobblestones seemed to sparkle just a little brighter in approval. Mama peeked into the garden, where a few vegetables had been growing in a very orderly sort of chaos. "Eh," she said, squinting at a particularly proud tomato. "You've grown well. Don't get any ideas about wandering off, though." The tomato, of course, didn't answer. Tomatoes are notoriously shy, especially around humans. The children, meanwhile, were busy with a morning ritual of their own. They had discovered a line of tiny pebbles near the doorstep and were pretending each one was a marching soldier. They whispered commands to the pebbles, sometimes giggling when one fell out of line. Papa watched from the doorway, trying very hard not to laugh out loud, which, let's be honest, he failed at spectacularly. Breakfast was a slow, cheerful affair. The table, small but sturdy, held a pot of porridge that smelled faintly of cinnamon and honey. The twins dug in with spoons that looked huge in their tiny hands, making a satisfying little clatter with each bite. Mama poured warm tea into little cups that seemed almost too dainty to hold liquid without spilling, and Papa sat back, nodding at the morning like a king surveying his realm. Between bites and sips, stories began to emerge. Not the kind of stories that had a beginning, middle, and end, but the kind that meandered gently, like smoke curling from the chimney. Do you remember the time a hedgehog tried to join our garden party? Mama asked, and the twins erupted in giggles. Papa shook his head, smiling, though the memory was a little fuzzy. After all, hedgehogs have a way of sneaking into one's life quietly and leaving without notice. After breakfast, the family stepped outside into the morning sun. The village was alive in the softest way possible. A cat padded along the street, pretending it owned the place, which of course it did, at least in its own mind. A couple of birds darted through the sky, leaving tiny streaks of shadow over the rooftops. Even the wind seemed to tiptoe carefully, brushing over the leaves so gently that the trees barely noticed. The family began their morning chores, which in the tiny village were simple but satisfying. Mama tended her flowers, singing softly to each one, as if expecting an answer. Papa swept the cobblestone street in front of the house, though a stray leaf always seemed to sneak past his broom. The twins, naturally, found adventure in the smallest things: a shiny pebble, a droplet of dew, a feather that had drifted down from somewhere far above. There was a quiet rhythm to everything. Nothing hurried, nothing rushed. Even the sun seemed to pause occasionally, just to peek around a roof and make sure the family was awake. And in this tiny corner of the world, life felt gentle, slow, and well, perfect. As the morning wore on, the village hummed with small, contented activity. A neighbor waved from across the street, a tiny dog barked in greeting, and a breeze carried a hint of something sweet from the bakery 2 houses down. The family moved through their day with the ease of someone who has all the time in the world, noticing the little wonders that most people walk past without a second glance. By now, you can probably imagine it: the tiny village, the tiny family, the tiny world full of big feelings and even bigger coziness. And if you're not careful, you might find yourself leaning back, taking a deep breath, and feeling just a little bit like you're there with them, watching the morning unfold, one gentle, peaceful moment at a time. Because that's the magic of mornings in this village. It's not about rushing or doing or being busy. It's about noticing the tiny things: the sparkle of dew on moss, the whisper of leaves in the wind, the soft giggle of a child chasing a pebble across the street. And for the tiny family living here, that is enough. That is everything. The morning sun had stretched a little higher now, spilling warm light across the tiny cottage, Inside, the air smelled faintly of flowers, wood polish, and that comforting hint of yesterday's porridge, which had been carefully saved in a jar for breakfast. The little family stirred, each in their own way, in a kind of sleepy dance that made mornings feel like a soft, gentle melody. Mama yawned first, her stretch slow and deliberate, as if she were coaxing her limbs awake from a very deep, very cozy nap. Her hands reached over the edge of the tiny bed to gently ruffle the hair of one of the twins, who immediately grumbled, "Too early," in a voice that was half complaint, half adorable protest. Papa, still tangled in blankets that barely covered his knees, rolled over with a big yawn that sounded almost like a squeaky door hinge. "Good morning," he mumbled, which in their world meant, "I am awake but not yet functional." The twins wiggled and squirmed, trying to escape the bed without fully waking up. One of them made the audacious decision to slide under the covers again, thinking no one would notice. Mama noticed. "Nice try, little one," she whispered, smiling, "but the sun has risen, and so must we." The first act of the morning was always brewing tea. Papa shuffled to the tiny kitchen, where the kettle waited patiently on the stove. It was one of those kettles that whistled softly, not a piercing shriek, just a friendly little reminder that tea was on its way. Mama carried over a basket of fresh herbs from the garden, mint, chamomile, and a tiny sprig of lavender, each picked with care the evening before. The sound of boiling water mingled with the soft clink of cups and spoons. There was something meditative about it, the rising steam curling like tiny ghosts above the kettle, the gentle gurgle as water poured into the cups, and the faint aroma of herbs filling every corner of the room. The twins, now fully awake, perched on their chairs, watching the process like tiny, very critical tea judges. "Needs more mint," one declared. "Definitely." The other agreed, nodding seriously. Mama just laughed, because really, how could you argue with such expert opinions? Breakfast followed, slow and unrushed. A small bowl of porridge sat at each place, topped with a drizzle of honey that glimmered like liquid gold. Papa sprinkled a few tiny berries across the bowls, the kind that had been carefully picked from the garden the day before. The twins dug in with little spoons that looked far too big for their hands, clattering softly against the bowls. Occasionally, a spoon would wobble dangerously, prompting a quiet gasp from Mama. "Careful," she said. "We don't want porridge on the floor before the day even starts." But she said it with such warmth that it sounded like a gentle joke rather than a scolding. As the family ate, the cottage itself seemed to breathe along with them. The floorboards creaked just a little as Papa shifted in his chair. The wind rustled the curtains, carrying with it the scent of the garden outside. A bird tapped lightly at the window, as if curious about what was happening inside. The twins paused in their eating to watch it, pointing and whispering about its tiny adventures. Once breakfast was finished, the morning chores began. Mama swept the floors with a broom so small and delicate it seemed like it could have been a toy. Yet it worked perfectly. Each stroke sent tiny dust motes dancing in the sunlight that spilled across the wooden floor. The twins attempted to help, which mostly meant giggling and chasing the dust motes as they floated by. Papa joined in, sweeping in long, exaggerated motions that sent a few specks of dust flying in unexpected directions, causing more laughter than actual cleaning. Then came the tending of the small garden, a cherished ritual. Outside, the twins raced ahead, sniffing flowers and examining leaves with exaggerated seriousness. Mama moved slowly among the plants, whispering encouragement to each one. "Grow strong," she murmured to a shy little tomato plant. "And you don't be shy, little pumpkin." Papa knelt down, adjusting a tiny stick to support a climbing vine. He made a mental note to himself that gardening was easier if you didn't mind getting your hands a little messy. Or a lot messy, depending on the plant's ambitions. The sounds of this simple morning were magical in their own way. Tiny footsteps on cobblestone, the soft rustling of leaves, the clink of watering cans as they were set down. Even the birds seemed to hum along in a gentle background chorus. Every noise was small, precise, and soothing, like a lullaby played by nature itself. Occasionally, the twins would get distracted by something curious. A snail crossing the path, a butterfly hovering just long enough to admire, or a leaf falling in an especially dramatic fashion. Mama would pause to admire these small wonders with them, bending low to whisper, "See how carefully it dances. Nature is never in a hurry." Papa, pretending to be a wise philosopher, would nod sagely, though mostly he was trying to balance the watering can without tipping it over. After the garden was tended and the floors were swept, the family often gathered for a brief moment of quiet. They would sit on the little porch, letting the morning sun warm their faces. The twins leaned against Mama, one curled up in Papa's lap, their eyes half closed, still enjoying the calm that came after the gentle business. The village hummed quietly around them, a neighbor sweeping their doorstep, the soft clip-clop of a horse in the distance, and the occasional squeak of a mouse venturing out to greet the day. Mama sighed contentedly. "There's something special about mornings here," she said, more to herself than anyone else. "Even the smallest things feel big." Papa agreed with a little nod, thinking that mornings like this were proof that happiness could be measured in tiny, perfect moments. The twins, of course, were already plotting their next adventure, but even they paused for a moment to sip tea and admire the soft light. By the time the sun had climbed a little higher, the tiny cottage felt fully alive. Not in a loud, bustling way, but in a quiet, measured rhythm that wrapped itself around anyone who entered. The clinking of dishes, the rustle of leaves, the soft thud of tiny footsteps, it was a symphony of calm. It was a place where mornings weren't rushed, where chores became meditations, and where even the simplest act, pouring tea, sweeping the floor, watering a plant, could feel like a little celebration. And so, the tiny family went about their morning, each moment small, deliberate, and full of gentle joy. In this little cottage, mornings were not just the start of a day, they were a slow, soothing ritual that reminded them, and anyone watching, that peace could be found in the tiniest details. And really, who couldn't use a morning like that? After breakfast and the morning chores, the twins were eager to escape the tiny cottage and explore the little garden that stretched behind it. The garden wasn't large, not in any grand sense, but to the children, it was a vast world full of hidden treasures, secret paths, and tiny adventures waiting to be discovered. The grass was cool beneath their tiny feet, soft as a blanket and dotted with morning dew that sparkled like little diamonds. They ran carefully, because even small drops of water could make a teeny splash. And splashes were, of course, very exciting. Papa followed behind, pretending to be a giant looming over a magical forest, while Mama wandered slowly among the plants, humming a tune that made the flowers sway gently, almost like they were dancing along. The first discovery of the day was a butterfly. Not an ordinary butterfly, of course, because in this tiny garden, everything was just a little more special. Its wings were patterned like a delicate mosaic, and when it fluttered past the flowers, it left tiny trails of light that the twins swore they could see if they squinted just right. "Look, it's painting the air," one of them whispered, eyes wide. The other nodded solemnly, as though this was a very serious, very important observation. Mama smiled, shaking her head. "Only in the garden, little ones. Only here." The children meandered along the garden paths, poking their fingers into the soil, peeking under leaves, and whispering to any creature that would listen. A snail passed by, gliding as if it had all the time in the world. The twins crouched low, watching its slow, deliberate movements, giggling softly. Papa pretended to be a snail expert, explaining in a whisper the mysterious habits of snails, which mostly involved a lot of sounds and nodding, while Mama pretended to take notes, scribbling in a tiny notebook she didn't really need. As the sun rose higher, golden light spilled over the garden, making leaves glow in shades of green so bright they almost seemed unreal. Tiny bees buzzed lazily from flower to flower, their hums like soft whispers in the warm morning air. Every now and then, one would pause mid-flight, hovering like a tiny helicopter, then continue on its way. The twins chased them, squealing with laughter, though of course, the bees were far too quick to catch. The twins discovered a hidden nook beneath a climbing rose vine. It was a small, shaded corner where the flowers leaned over like they were protecting a secret. In that nook, something unusual caught their attention. A flower that seemed to glow faintly, even in the bright daylight. Its petals shimmered softly, like the glow of a candle seen from far away. "It's magic," one twin exclaimed. The other nodded furiously, whispering, "We have to keep it safe. No monsters allowed." Mama peeked in and smiled. "Ah, you found the evening star bloom," she said softly, as if letting them in on a gentle secret. "It glows brighter as the sun sets. But even now, it likes to shine a little." Further down the garden, a small bird hopped along the path, its feathers glinting in the sunlight. Unlike ordinary birds, this one had a curious way of singing, a soft, lilting tune that sounded almost like a lullaby. The twins paused to listen, leaning close to hear every note. Papa bent down to explain that the bird was a nightingale, though the twins were certain that it must have been a magical bird sent just for them. "It's singing just for us," one whispered. The other nodded, closing their eyes and swaying slightly, as if in time with the gentle melody. Mama wandered among the flower beds, her fingers brushing lightly over petals. She paused occasionally, inhaling deeply, and then smiled. "Everything here has a story," she said. "The roses, the sunflowers, even the tiniest daisy. They all have their own little adventures, just like you." The twins beamed, feeling very important. After all, it was true. They were adventurers today, discovering hidden treasures and magical blooms. The sun cast long, soft shadows across the garden, and the twins' footsteps slowed as they wandered through patches of cool shade. They noticed how the light danced on the leaves, creating little patterns on the ground that shifted gently with the breeze. Every so often, a petal would fall, drifting down in slow motion, and the twins would chase it, laughing quietly as it landed softly on the grass. Papa tried to catch one too, but his hands were far too big, and the petal slipped through his fingers like it had been expecting him to fail. A few tiny creatures scurried in the undergrowth. A mouse peeking out from behind a rock, a ladybug clinging to a leaf, a caterpillar inching along a twig. The twins observed each one with fascination, pointing and whispering to them as if they could communicate secrets. Mama explained softly, "Each of them has its own little world, and they all live quietly here, just like us." The twins nodded, thinking this garden was the biggest, most amazing world they had ever seen. By midday, the garden felt alive with soft sounds. Bees buzzing lazily, leaves rustling in the breeze, the distant laughter of a neighbor's child, and the gentle clink of a watering can as Mama sprinkled the plants. The twins wandered a little farther than before, discovering a tiny patch of mint whose scent made them sneeze, then giggle, then inhale again because it smelled so good. Even the smallest sensations, soft grass, cool shade, warm sunlight, seemed to matter in this garden. Papa eventually called the twins over for a short break. They sat on the soft grass, leaning against a tiny rock, catching their breath. Mama brought out a little jug of fresh water and poured it carefully into their cups, the clear liquid glinting in the sunlight. The twins drank slowly, savoring the cool refreshment, and then lay back for a few moments, watching the clouds drift lazily across the sky. As the day wore on, the garden seemed to hold its breath with them, calm and gentle, almost as if it were part of their tiny world. Even the glowing flower in the hidden nook appeared to smile, its petals shimmering faintly in the soft sunlight. The lullaby singing bird hopped to a branch nearby, its melody filling the air with warmth and peace. The twins yawned softly, curling up in the grass for a moment, feeling completely safe and completely content. And so, the garden became more than just a place of plants and flowers. It was a place of wonder, of tiny magic and gentle adventure, a place where mornings stretched like soft blankets, and every leaf, every petal, every buzzing bee seemed to say, "Slow down. Notice this. Enjoy this." The twins had learned today, as they would learn many more mornings, that the little things often held the most beauty, and sometimes the tiniest things could feel as grand as an entire universe. In this gentle, sunlit garden, life moved slowly, carefully, and perfectly. And as the children wandered a little further, chasing shadows and soft breezes, it was clear that the magic of the tiny garden had wrapped them in a quiet, comforting embrace, a hug from the world itself, whispering softly that all was well. After a morning full of tiny adventures in the garden, the family decided it was the perfect time to take a stroll to the river. Not a big river, nothing roaring or rushing wildly, but a gentle, winding stream that meandered through the valley, smoothing stones and carrying whispers of water wherever it went. To the little family, it was the perfect place to slow down, breathe, and listen to the quiet songs of nature. The twins scampered ahead, tiny feet padding over the soft grass, occasionally stopping to poke at a pebble or wave to a passing butterfly. Papa followed behind, pretending to be the official river guide, complete with an imaginary hat and a stick that doubled as a staff of wisdom. "Watch your step," he called, though mostly because he knew he would trip if he didn't. Mama strolled slowly, letting the sun warm her face and humming softly to herself, as if the morning needed a soundtrack to match its calm. The path to the river wound through wildflowers and tall grasses, soft against their legs. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, carrying the delicate scents of mint, daisies, and damp earth. Every so often, a small bird darted from branch to branch, chirping a quiet tune that felt like a tiny invitation. Come closer, slow down, notice the little things. The twins paused mid-step to watch a pair of ladybugs chase each other on a leaf. "Are they racing?" one whispered. "Maybe," the other answered, eyes wide, "but they're very polite racers. No pushing." When they reached the riverbank, the sound of flowing water welcomed them like a soft lullaby. The river gurgled gently over smooth stones, the water clear enough to see tiny fish swimming lazily beneath the surface. Every now and then, a ripple shimmered in the sunlight, as if the river itself were smiling. The reeds along the edge swayed in the breeze, brushing softly against one another, creating a whispering sound that made the family pause for just a moment to listen. The twins immediately set about collecting little stones from the river's edge, arranging them in patterns that made perfect sense to them, but might have looked like chaos to anyone else. Papa knelt beside them, picking up a particularly round pebble and holding it up to the sunlight. "This one's a champion," he declared, giving it a small bow. Mama laughed softly and shook her head, admiring their creativity and their ability to make such fun out of something so simple. As they walked along the river, the twins kept looking for fish, pointing excitedly whenever one appeared. The water moved slowly, creating soft ripples that reflected the sky and the surrounding trees. Mama whispered, "See how the sunlight dances on the water. It's like the river is putting on a little show just for us." The twins gasped quietly, because really, who wouldn't want to see a private river performance? The family came to a small clearing where the river widened a little, forming a calm pool. Papa suggested they sit for a while and just watch. The twins curled up against him, and Mama leaned back against a smooth stone, letting the warmth seep into her shoulders. Around them, the river gurgled softly, birds chirped in distant trees, and the reeds swayed lazily in the gentle wind. It was the kind of moment that made you forget about time, where nothing mattered except the soft rhythm of life flowing right in front of you. A little further along, the twins spotted a tiny rainbow forming where the sunlight hit the river just right. "Look," one squealed, pointing. "A rainbow! Can we catch it?" Papa laughed quietly. "Catch it? Maybe with your imagination. Rainbows are very shy." Mama smiled at the scene, brushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "Sometimes the smallest wonders are the ones you can't hold," she said softly, "but they can still make your heart feel big." They wandered along the bank, noticing small things along the way, a dragonfly resting on a reed, the soft shimmer of pebbles beneath the clear water, and the way a leaf floated lazily downstream, turning slowly as if dancing to the river's tune. Every sound was gentle, the water gurgling, the reeds swaying, the occasional call of a distant bird. Even the twins' giggles blended seamlessly with the peaceful symphony of the river. Papa pointed to a cluster of smooth stones and suggested a tiny game of balance. Each member of the family carefully stepped from one stone to another, testing their coordination, wobbling slightly, and laughing softly when someone nearly tipped over. The river's surface reflected their movements, making it seem as though they were walking among little mirrors floating in the sunlight. At one point, Mama stopped to listen more closely to the wind rustling through the trees. "Do you hear it?" she whispered. "It's telling a story. A quiet one about the river, the stones, the flowers about us even." The twins listened with rapt attention, imagining the wind as a storyteller, carrying gentle tales to anyone willing to hear. Papa nodded sagely, making a soft humming sound to show he understood, though in truth he was mostly enjoying the way the twins leaned in, eyes wide with wonder. Time seemed to slow along the river. The soft gurgling of water, the gentle rustle of reeds, the shimmering rainbow, and the lazy flight of birds all combined into a rhythm that was almost like a heartbeat. A slow, steady pulse that wrapped around the family like a soft blanket. Even the sunlight seemed to pause occasionally, spilling golden warmth across their faces and sparkling on the water. As the afternoon wore on, the family lingered by the river a little longer, savoring the quiet, gentle moments. The twins dipped their fingers into the cool water, watching ripples spread outward. Mama picked up a smooth stone, turning it over in her hand, marveling at how something so small could be so perfect. Papa lay back on a rock, letting the warmth of the sun sink in, and closed his eyes for a few slow breaths. Eventually, the family began the slow walk back home. The twins' steps were a little slower now, tired from the excitement and tiny adventures of the riverbank. Mama and Papa walked alongside them, enjoying the calm aftermath of a day spent noticing the world in small, delightful ways. Every so often, the wind whispered through the trees, and the river gurgled behind them, like a soft goodbye, promising more quiet wonders when they returned. By the time they reached the edge of the village, the river was a gentle memory in their minds, a soft, flowing melody they could carry with them. The day had unfolded like a slow, peaceful story, full of tiny marvels. The rainbow, the shimmering stones, the lullaby of the reeds, and the quiet magic that lived in the small, everyday world. And as the family stepped back into the warmth of their tiny cottage, hearts calm and spirits light, they knew the river would always be there, waiting patiently with its gentle song, ready to remind them that life's simplest moments often hold the most beauty. After their gentle river walk, the family returned to their tiny cottage, tired in the kind of way that made every movement feel soft and slow. The sunlight streamed through the windows, warming the wooden floors and spilling across every corner of the little home. The house seemed to sigh in relief at their return, welcoming them with the familiar smells of wood, herbs, and just a hint of leftover porridge from the morning. The twins padded inside first, their tiny feet making faint. Happy thumps on the floor. "Home again?" one said quietly, mostly to herself. The other nodded in solemn agreement, pretending that coming back home was some very serious, very important mission. Papa followed, carrying a small basket of pebbles and tiny treasures collected along the river, while Mama trailed behind with a smile, brushing her hair back and humming a soft tune that seemed to wrap the room in warmth. The first order of business, as always, was settling in for a little rest. Sunlit corners of the cottage had been claimed long ago by cushions and small blankets. The twins curled up in one of these corners, pulling tiny quilts around themselves and letting their heads flop back with satisfied little sighs. Mama found a chair near the window, the sunlight catching the strands of her hair just right, and Papa sank into the cozy nook by the fireplace, letting the warmth seep into his shoulders. The soft ticking of the old clock on the wall set the pace for the afternoon. Each tick was gentle, precise, almost like a quiet metronome reminding the family that time was moving slowly and there was no need to rush. The fire crackled occasionally, sending tiny sparks dancing upward before they disappeared into the chimney. It was the kind of fire that didn't roar or demand attention, but instead offered a comforting, steady glow, perfect for a quiet afternoon at home. Mama pulled out a small book, the pages worn soft from years of gentle use. She opened it carefully and began reading aloud, her voice slow and soothing, curling around the words like a warm blanket. The twins leaned closer, their eyes half closed, listening to the story of a faraway forest where foxes whispered secrets to the wind and stars sang lullabies at night. Papa, pretending to be the most attentive listener in the world, nodded along, making quiet, approving hums whenever a particularly exciting line came up. The twins giggled quietly when he accidentally mispronounced a word, and Mama's laughter joined theirs, soft and melodic, filling the room without ever disturbing the calm. After a while, the twins grew restless, not with impatience, but with a gentle curiosity that made them want to do something with their hands. Mama brought out a basket of knitting yarn and tiny needles, showing them how to loop and twist in patterns that looked very fancy, even if the result was a little lopsided. "It's okay if it doesn't look perfect," she said with a wink. "Knitting is about enjoying the process, not winning a prize." The twins nodded seriously, concentrating hard, occasionally sticking their tongues out at the effort, which made Papa chuckle softly. Papa, never one to be left out, picked up a small piece of wood he had brought from the river earlier. With careful little taps from his tiny hammer, he began carving shapes into it, the faint sound blending perfectly with the ticking clock and crackling fire. "I think this will be a boat," he said proudly. The twins leaned in to inspect it, whispering their own ideas about what it could become. "A spaceship," one suggested. "A castle," the other added. Papa smiled, nodding thoughtfully. "Maybe it can be all three," he said, which made them giggle again. Meanwhile, Mama poured a small cup of tea for each of them. The warmth of the liquid seeped into their hands and spread slowly through their bodies, the soft aroma of herbs and honey filling the room. They sipped quietly, savoring the comfort that came from simple things: tea, sun, and the gentle presence of one another. Outside, the breeze whispered through the windows, brushing the curtains lightly and carrying with it the faint scent of the garden. The twins grew quiet, eyelids drooping, lulled by the combination of warmth, soft sounds, and the cozy rhythm of home. They curled further into their blankets, and Mama's gentle humming filled the room, blending with the fire's soft crackle and the ticking of the clock. Papa's carving slowed, each tap now more deliberate and careful, like a lullaby in motion. Even the shadows from the furniture seemed to stretch and yawn along the floor, settling into the calm of the afternoon. At one point, a tiny mouse ventured across the floor, curious about the gentle activity in the room. The twins spotted it immediately and whispered excitedly. "Hello, little friend," Mama said softly, making sure the mouse felt welcome but safe. The mouse twitched its nose, sniffed the air, and then disappeared quietly behind a stack of books. The twins giggled quietly, imagining the mouse enjoying the warmth of the cottage as much as they did. The afternoon moved slowly, each moment carrying the kind of quiet, magic that only a home filled with care can offer. The twins started telling small stories of their own, sharing little imaginings about the river, the garden, and the glowing flower they had discovered the day before. Mama listened intently, adding gentle encouragement and soft chuckles, while Papa occasionally chimed in with exaggerated wisdom, making the twins laugh even more. Time seemed to stretch in the sunlit cottage, each second gentle and unhurried. The warmth of the sun, the soft tick of the clock, the occasional pop from the fire, and the quiet murmur of conversations blended together into a slow, soothing rhythm. The twins' eyes grew heavier, and one by one they drifted into tiny, peaceful naps, curled up in their sunlit corner like little bundles of calm. Mama and Papa remained quietly by their sides, savoring the gentle peace. Mama picked up her book again, reading in whispers for her own enjoyment, while Papa finished his carving, setting the tiny boat, or spaceship, or castle, carefully on the windowsill to admire. The afternoon in the cottage was a symphony of quiet joy, soft laughter, and gentle routine. In this cozy little home, life moved slowly and perfectly. Each moment, tea sipped, pages turned, laughter shared, hands busy with knitting or carving, was a reminder that calm and happiness could be found in the simplest of things. The warmth of the sun, the crackle of the fire, the tick of the clock, and the quiet presence of family combined to create a world that felt safe, gentle, and full of soft magic. And as the shadows lengthened, and the sunlight softened even further, the tiny cottage seemed to hug its little family, holding them in the quiet comfort of a perfect, peaceful afternoon. As the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in shades of pink, gold, and soft lavender, the tiny cottage stirred once more. The family had spent the day exploring, tending the garden, and resting in the sunlit corners, and now it was time to transition into the quiet, soothing rhythm of evening. The air outside smelled faintly of cool grass and the soft perfume of flowers, while inside, the warm light of the cottage flickered against wooden walls, promising comfort and calm. The twins ran ahead, as usual, racing to tidy up their little play area. Tiny blocks were stacked with deliberate care, small books returned to shelves, and scattered pebbles gathered into a neat pile by the door. Papa followed slowly behind, pretending to be the chief inspector of tidiness, occasionally pretending to trip over a tiny object just to make the twins giggle. Mama moved with calm precision, carrying a small basket of laundry and folding little blankets, humming softly to herself. Once the cottage was tidied, it was time for lanterns. Papa carefully lit each one, the flames flickering gently inside their glass cases. The glow was soft and warm, just enough to cast dancing shadows on the walls without disturbing the gentle quiet of the evening. Mama carried one lantern to the garden, placing it near the glowing flower they had discovered days before. The twins followed, holding hands and marveling at how the lanterns made even familiar places look magical. The family decided to take a short evening stroll through the garden before dinner. The air was cooler now, carrying the faint scent of damp soil and the lingering warmth of the day. Fireflies began to appear, blinking softly in the twilight, like tiny lanterns floating in the air. The twins tried to catch them, laughing quietly when the glowing insects zipped just out of reach. Papa pretended to have a net, but the fireflies were far too clever for any net, and Mama shook her head, smiling. Patience, little ones. They only glow for those who notice them carefully. As they walked along the garden paths, the sun dipped lower, casting long, soft shadows across the cobblestones and flower beds. The trees swayed lazily in the evening breeze, and the petals of flowers caught the last golden rays, shimmering faintly. The twins paused by the glowing flower in its hidden nook, whispering secrets to it as if it could hear them. Mama and Papa exchanged quiet smiles, enjoying the gentle magic of the moment without words. When they returned to the cottage, the family prepared for a quiet evening inside. Mama pulled out a small music box, winding it carefully. The soft, delicate melody filled the room, twining with the gentle crackle of the fireplace. Papa set out a few more blankets in the cozy corners, arranging them just so, while the twins settled down on the cushions, their eyes reflecting the warm glow of the lanterns. Dinner that evening was simple but comforting. Tiny bowls of soup, warm bread, and fresh herbs from the garden. They ate slowly, savoring each bite, the soft clinks of spoons and bowls adding a subtle rhythm to the quiet home. Occasionally, one of the twins would giggle or whisper a story about the fireflies, the glowing flower, or the rainbow they had seen by the river. Papa would nod sagely, and Mama would laugh softly, adding gentle remarks to their tales. After dinner, Mama suggested a little storytelling session. The twins eagerly curled up near her, wrapping their tiny blankets around themselves. She told them a story of a soft, sleepy forest where the trees whispered secrets, the stars winked down, and rivers sang lullabies. Papa added in small, exaggerated gestures to make the story come alive, making the twins giggle quietly. The music box played softly in the background, mingling with the crackle of the fire and the faint rustle of the lantern's light flickering against the walls. As the sky outside deepened into twilight, the family paused to observe the final touches of the evening. The clouds were painted in delicate streaks of pink and purple, stretching lazily across the horizon. A few stars began to twinkle, shyly at first, then more confidently as darkness approached. The fireflies danced among the flowers, their tiny lights flickering like whispers of magic. Shadows stretched and twisted softly across the walls of the cottage, moving in harmony with the gentle evening breeze. The twins grew quieter as they watched, their eyes reflecting the soft glow of lanterns and fireflies. Papa whispered small observations about the colors of the sky, the way the shadows danced, and how the wind seemed to carry stories from distant places. Mama reminded them to take a deep breath, letting the cool evening air fill their lungs, and exhale slowly, feeling the calm settle over them like a soft blanket. Finally, it was time to lay out the cozy blankets for the night. Mama and Papa spread them carefully across the floor and cushions, making sure each corner was tucked snugly. The twins crawled under their blankets, pulling them up to their chins, and Mama brushed their hair back gently. "The world is soft tonight," she whispered, "full of gentle magic, quiet whispers, and dreams waiting for you." Papa leaned over, kissing the top of each twin's head softly, and whispered, "Close your eyes and let the evening carry you to sleep. The river, the garden, the stars, they're all here with you." The twins yawned, their tiny bodies relaxing completely under the weight of the day's gentle adventures. Even the cottage seemed to breathe along with them, the soft crackle of the fire, the flicker of the lanterns, and the muted melody of the music box blending together into a slow, steady lullaby. Outside, the world continued its quiet rhythm. The wind whispered through the trees, the fireflies blinked lazily, and the night stretched like a soft, endless blanket over the tiny valley. Inside, the family was calm and content, wrapped in warmth, light, and gentle magic. The soft routines, the cozy rituals, and the subtle wonders of the evening had created a space where everything felt safe, serene, and just a little enchanted. And as the last traces of sunlight slipped beneath the horizon, the tiny cottage seemed to hug its inhabitants gently, preparing them for the slow journey toward dreams. In this warm, quiet space, the family had completed another perfect day. A day filled with gentle movement, subtle magic, laughter, and calm. And now, with the fire crackling, the lanterns glowing, and the soft music playing, the night itself whispered softly, it was time to rest, time to drift, time to dream. The lanterns flickered softly, casting a warm, gentle glow across the tiny cottage. Outside, the evening had deepened into night, and the soft rustle of leaves and occasional chirp of a distant cricket created a natural lullaby. Inside, the family gathered in their favorite corner, blankets tucked around them like little nests, ready for the quiet ritual of bedtime stories. The twins snuggled close to Mama, their tiny faces glowing in the lantern light, eyes wide with anticipation. Papa settled beside them, holding a small, worn book that smelled faintly of paper and lavender. "Tonight," he said softly, "we have stories that will carry you gently into your dreams." Mama began with a tale of a kind little fox who lived in a sleepy forest. The fox had soft, rust-colored fur and the gentlest eyes. Each morning, he wandered through the woods, leaving tiny gifts of flowers and berries for his friends. Rabbits, squirrels, even the shy hedgehog who preferred to stay under leaves. The twins listened quietly, imagining the fox tiptoeing softly on mossy paths, leaving small surprises that made everyone smile. One of the twins giggled, imagining the hedgehog's tiny surprise face, and Mama chuckled softly, shaking her head. Papa took over next, reading from the worn book. It was a story about a magical flower hidden in a quiet garden, much like the one they had discovered earlier. This flower glowed faintly at night, not with bright light, but with a soft, comforting shimmer that made anyone near it feel calm and safe. The flower had friends too. A tiny bird that sang lullabies, a curious snail who always arrived a little late, and a butterfly who painted the night sky with its wings. The twins listened, eyes half closed, imagining the little flower glowing in the moonlight as Papa's gentle voice wove around their thoughts. Between stories, Mama and Papa whispered soft comments to the twins. "Did you see the fox's little tail twitch?" Mama asked, nudging one gently. "And the flower, isn't it glowing just for you?" Papa added, "Even the snail makes it on time sometimes, if you believe hard enough." The twins giggled quietly, yawns threatening to sneak in, but curiosity kept their eyes open a moment longer. Mama then created a story on the spot, a tale spun entirely from imagination. It was about the stars above, whispering secrets to anyone who would listen. One star told the story of a tiny rabbit who learned to hop across clouds. Another shared the adventures of a sleepy owl who painted the night sky with silver feathers. The twins were enraptured, imagining the quiet, magical world above them, feeling the soft, comforting rhythm of Mama's voice. Papa gently added a layer of soft humor, describing a little raccoon who tried very hard to tidy up the forest every night, but ended up tangled in leaves instead. The twins burst into quiet giggles, careful not to disturb the calm magic of the moment. Mama smiled, brushing their hair softly, reminding them that laughter, even at bedtime, was a gentle kind of magic. Outside, the world moved quietly. The wind whispered through the trees, the fireflies flickered faintly in the garden, and the soft gurgle of the river reached their ears like a distant lullaby. The twins' tiny hands relaxed in the warmth of the blankets, and one by one, their eyelids began to droop. Mama noticed, lowering her voice even further, making the words slow and soft like clouds drifting across a night sky. Papa leaned over, brushing a tiny curl from a twin's forehead. "Time to let the fox, the flower, and the stars carry you into dreams," he whispered. The twins' heads rested gently against Mama and Papa, still awake enough to smile but heavy with sleep. The gentle rhythm of storytelling, combined with the cozy warmth of the blankets and the soft light of the lanterns, worked like a lullaby wrapping itself around them. Mama told the last story of the night, about a sleepy river that flowed gently through a magical valley, reflecting the moon and stars above. The river hummed a soft tune, carrying little leaves, twigs, and even the occasional firefly downstream, always moving slowly, always caring for everything in its path. The twins' breathing slowed, little smiles lingering on their faces as they drifted closer to sleep, their imaginations floating along with the river in Mama's story. Papa closed the book carefully. Setting it aside, he whispered a few soft words to the twins. "Sleep well, little ones. Let the fox, the flower, and the stars keep you company. And remember, tomorrow the sun will rise, ready to bring another gentle day." Mama leaned close, kissing each twin on the forehead and brushing their hair softly. "Good night, little hearts. Dream softly," she whispered, her voice almost a breeze itself. The lanterns flickered gently in the room, shadows dancing softly along the walls. The fire crackled a little, sending tiny sparks upward before they disappeared into the chimney. The music box, still wound earlier in the evening, played faint, tinkling notes that wove perfectly into the quiet rhythm of the night. The twins were now asleep, curled up together, their breathing slow and steady, perfectly in sync with the calm of the cottage. Outside, the night was alive with gentle sounds. The whispering wind, the distant croak of a frog, the soft gurgle of the river, and the occasional twinkle of a firefly. The moon cast a soft silver light over the garden, illuminating the glowing flower and the tiny lanterns, as if the world itself were joining in the quiet magic of the cottage. Inside, the house held its breath with the sleeping twins. Mama and Papa sat quietly, enjoying the peaceful moment, savoring the softness of the night. They watched the flickering lanterns and shadows, feeling the gentle weight of calm settle over everything. Even the tiny details, the curl of a blanket, the shimmer of a book's pages, the soft rise and fall of little chests, felt like a part of the quiet symphony of bedtime. And so the family rested together, surrounded by warmth, soft light, and gentle stories. The fox wandered the mossy forest, the magical flower glowed faintly, and the stars whispered their secrets to anyone who would listen. The night moved slowly, serenely, with each quiet sound adding to the peaceful rhythm of sleep. In this tiny cottage, under the flickering lanterns and the watchful glow of the moon, the world was soft, safe, and full of gentle magic. The twins dreamed, wrapped in blankets and love, while Mama and Papa shared a quiet, satisfied smile, knowing that for tonight everything was calm, and everything was well. The night had fully settled over the little village now. The sky was deep and velvety, scattered with countless stars that twinkled softly, like tiny lanterns hung by invisible hands. The moon, full and gentle, cast a silver glow over the rooftops, making the moss-covered tiles sparkle ever so slightly. Cobblestone streets glimmered under the moonlight, as if the village itself were sighing in contentment, ready to rest after a day of soft adventures. In the tiny cottage at the heart of the village, the little family slept peacefully. The twins lay curled under their blankets, chests rising and falling in slow, gentle rhythm. Tiny breaths escaped in soft sighs, like whispers of dreams floating in the warm, quiet room. Mama's hand rested lightly on one of the twins' shoulders, a protective presence even in sleep, and Papa's arm draped casually over the other, careful not to disturb the tiny, delicate calm. Outside, the village hummed quietly with the subtle rhythm of night. A gentle breeze stirred the leaves of trees, causing soft rustles that sounded like nature's lullaby. Somewhere in the distance, a small dog's tail thumped against the floorboards of its cozy home. Crickets chirped faintly, their tiny voices blending with the rustling wind and the whisper of the river nearby. Even the fireflies danced slowly in the gardens, blinking their soft golden lights, like little night-time stars brought down to earth. The windows of the cottages reflected the moonlight, painting the village in silvery rectangles. Tiny curtains fluttered in the breeze, casting slow, graceful shadows on the floors within. The twins' cottage glowed gently from the soft lanterns Mama and Papa had left burning, their light flickering like the heartbeat of the home itself. The warmth inside was matched by the tranquility outside, creating a delicate balance of comfort and serenity. In their dreams, the twins wandered through the magical corners of their tiny world. One dream carried them back to the garden, where the glowing flower shone faintly under a night sky, and the fireflies guided them along the paths they knew so well. Another dream took them to the gentle river, the water whispering stories as it meandered lazily over smooth stones, the stars reflected in its soft ripples. Even the fox from Mama's bedtime story appeared, tiptoeing quietly along mossy trails, leaving tiny surprises that would make the twins giggle quietly if they were awake. Mama and Papa watched over them with gentle smiles, letting the quiet rhythm of night carry the twins further into sleep. Every tiny movement, the soft rise and fall of chests, the twitch of a curling hand, the faint shift of a blanket, felt like a part of the village's own breathing, slow, careful, and steady. Papa whispered softly to Mama, though not to wake anyone. "Even the moon looks peaceful tonight. Makes me think our tiny world is exactly where it's supposed to be." Mama nodded, her eyes reflecting the gentle glow of the lanterns. "Yes, everything is calm. Everything is as it should be." Outside, the wind rustled through the leaves once more, creating tiny whispers that floated across the village. A lone owl hooted softly in the distance, its call gentle, almost shy, blending seamlessly with the soft gurgle of the river. The night was alive, but in a slow, soothing way, not noisy, not demanding attention. Just a quiet symphony of small sounds that promised rest and calm to anyone who listened. The twins shifted slightly in their sleep, a tiny giggle escaping one of them as a dream played out. Papa chuckled quietly, careful not to disturb the delicate stillness. Mama whispered, "They're happy, dreaming of little adventures, just like we hoped." The cottage, warmed by the firelight and lanterns, seemed to wrap them all in a soft embrace. Each shadow, each flicker of light, each gentle sound contributed to the feeling of safety, serenity, and quiet wonder. Even the village beyond the cottage felt hushed and soft. Tiny rooftops were bathed in moonlight, smoke rose lazily from chimneys, and the cobblestones glimmered faintly as if sprinkled with starlight. Windows glowed gently here and there, hinting at other families tucked into their own nests of blankets, drifting slowly into dreams. The wind carried the faint scent of flowers and damp earth, reminders of the day's gentle moments lingering quietly in the night. The music of the night, delicate and soft, seemed to echo even inside the cottage. Fire crackled faintly in the fireplace, the tiny flames casting dancing shadows across the walls. The lanterns' glow flickered in rhythm with the gentle night, creating a harmony of light and shadow. Even the tiny tick of the clock on the wall blended into the night's lullaby, steady, slow, and unhurried. Papa and Mama settled into the soft silence, letting the calm wash over them. They whispered a few words to each other, low and slow, like part of the night itself. "Everything is peaceful tonight." Yes, even the stars seemed to nod off, and then they let the quiet hold them, too, feeling the village, the river, the garden, and their tiny home all breathing together in harmony. Slowly, the night deepened further. The twins' soft breathing became the only sound inside the cottage, tiny whispers of dreams filling the room. Outside, the fireflies' glow faded gently, and the stars shimmered quietly, keeping watch over the sleeping village. Shadows stretched and shifted, long and delicate, as the moon's silver light bathed every roof and street in tranquility. And now, dear listener, it's time for you to drift as well. Let your body sink into your bed or your cozy corner. Imagine the tiny village, the warm cottage, the glowing flower, the gentle river, and the twinkling stars all around you. Let the soft sounds of night, rustling leaves, distant crickets, fireflies blinking softly, and the hush of the moonlit sky carry you gently toward rest. Close your eyes, breathe slowly, feel the warmth of a soft blanket, the quiet of a safe home, and the tender calm of a world that is entirely at peace. Let your thoughts float gently, like leaves on a calm river, drifting toward dreams. Know that, like the little family in the tiny village, you are safe, cared for, and wrapped in gentle magic. The night holds you now, soft and quiet. The stars above whisper secrets of calm, the moon smiles down gently, and the tiny village sleeps under a blanket of silver light. Drift slowly, dream gently, and rest well, little one, until the sun rises again.